Again, as we continue our study of the life of this great prophet of the Old Testament, Elisha, we have to skip over some more incidents. We have to skip over the Shunammite woman who's given a son, and then the death and resurrection, as it were, of her son by the prophet. We have to skip over the Hebrew and the multiplying of the bread. We have to come now to chapter 5, to the issue of Naaman, the Syrian or Aramean, and his leprosy. And we're going to first acts of the story, and then we're going to focus on this man Naaman and what change took place in his heart and in his life by the grace and mercy of God. So our focus is not going to be so much on Elisha, but on Naaman. But beyond that, upon the great God of heaven, who can take a pagan rebel sinner and make him a trophy of grace. So let's begin. Look briefly at the facts of the narrative. We have the setting of the stage, verse 1 through 7. Then we have the healing accomplished, verses 8 to 14. And then we have soul healing added, which is evidenced in verse 15. So we begin as we go through the narrative, just setting the stage. We have the identity of Naaman. It says he was the captain of the army of the king of Aram, a great man with his master, highly respected. He was the victorious general of Syria, who had conquered the enemies and would come back from the wars. Everybody knew Naaman, well respected in the whole country, a valiant warrior, a great soldier. But he was a leper. Then we have, secondly, the message of hope. What's he going to do about this? And here, a little captive slave girl who waits on Naaman's wife. And she just whispers in her mistress's, her boss's ears, you know, we have a prophet back in Israel. Our prophet could take care of master's disease. She felt sorry for her master, a captive girl, and mentions to the praise of the Lord the power of Jehovah channeled through or working through his servant Elisha. And so the prophet, or the king, he had open access to the king. He tells the king in this message of hope that, you know, there's this prophet in Israel, and this slave girl tells me he has the power to heal. And so the king sends a letter to the king of Israel. What a contrast. He says, yeah, I believe this. This is true. Yeah, there's a prophet in Israel. He can handle this. And the letter comes to the king of Israel, and the king of Israel tears his robes and says, oh no, what do I do now? He wants the impossible. King of Syria believes it. King of Israel doesn't. Wow, something wrong here, isn't there? Then we have the healing accomplished, and so the word comes to the prophet, and the prophet commands the king to send him to me. And so he comes, and with his chariots, he pulls up, and the prophet doesn't go out. He sends the message. The command is that he goes and washes in the river. Quickly through the narrative before we come to the detailed exposition in relation to Naaman. And Naaman at first resists this. He says, wait a minute. Why doesn't he come out? Here I am. Doesn't he know? I'm Naaman, the general, chief of staff. I deserve a little respect. No, the prophet doesn't come out. Send the messenger. Just go wash 7 times in the Jordan. What, the Jordan? That filthy Jordan River? Now, remember, he had been on raids. He had conquered Israel. He had beaten them in battle. He had probably been by the Jordan, if not over the Jordan, a few times. And he says, we've got Abana, we've got Pharpar there in Syria. We've got better rivers there. You know, everything's better in Syria. I'm not going to wash in that filthy river. So he reacts in pride. But his humble servant plead with him. Don't you think, if he has to do some hard thing, he'd do it? Why don't you just go dip in the river? What's going to hurt? You know, if you get a little dirty, you can go back and wash in the Abana or the Pharpar, and you can get clean again. It's not going to hurt you. Try it. washes, and he's healed. He comes out of the river, and his flesh is restored like the flesh of a baby. You look at a little baby's skin, and there's no wrinkles, nothing of this kind of thing. Not even teenager skin with what teenagers have to go through. I went through skin. Wow. Look at that. And he's filled with gratitude. And that's the third thing is as we look at his healing, that is what is the response. He's filled with gratitude, and he wants to pay the prophet. He says, take a gift. The prophet says, I don't want your money. I want the glory of God. How different from health wealth preachers, huh? I did this for God's glory, not to get your money. I do not seek yours, but you. That's the message of Elisha, the prophet, to Naaman. And so Naaman then displays his faith. End of the message. His faith is demonstrated. He now trusts in the God of Israel. He says, there's no God in all the earth, verse 15, but in Israel. Your God, in other words, is the only true God. Our God, worthless. Not a God. Just a statue. True and living God. And the only God there is. Now, what's the proof? It says, all right, you don't want my money, but, well, then do me a favor. Give me 2 mule loads of earth. Look at this in detail. What's he going to do with that? Hang on, we'll find out. But this is a declaration. I will not sacrifice anyone. The God of Israel, Jehovah, the Lord. He names him. And then he asks for this pardon, or he asks for a little leeway, not a compromise, but we shall see, but a leeway. And Elisha says, go in peace. In peace. That means go with God's blessing. Back to Syria. New man. A changed man. Now let's look in detail. There are many lessons in this whole passage. That was a fly over 30,000 feet view of the passage. Now we're going to come down to more what we might call, not spy plane level because they fly, and look at more detail what really happened to Naaman. How did God change him? Because here we have, you see, a picture, like we often find in the New Testament gospel accounts, of healing, physical healing, connected with, and in a way illustrative of, lepers cleansed by Jesus. And he says to them, go in peace, your faith has made you well, or literally your faith has saved you. These are Jesus' words many times when he would heal those who came to him with disease. And the great illustration of God's saving work in the wilderness, they looked to the serpent and were healed. And Jesus says, thus will the Son of Man be lifted up, that all who look to him will have life, will live. And so, it's a picture, yes, physical healing genuinely, truly took place, of what took place in his diseased soul as well. So, let's now look at this in more detail. Now I have 4 points to this, or 5 points actually, to this conversion story as we look at it now, zooming in on Naaman. And the first point is there's a prerequisite. Naaman, to bring him to the place where he seeks the Lord. The prerequisite to conversion is a felt sense of need. Let me just name the headings so you know where I'm going, and hopefully it will be clear as we get there. Second point is the means of conversion. Right? He has a sense of need. But secondly, there's the message of good news, the means of conversion. A message comes to him. There's a prophet in Israel. There's a God in Israel. Thirdly, we see the process of conversion. There's a sense, there's a need to see the futility. Men grab around for every kind of answer to their needs before they come to Christ. You need to see the futility of man-made solutions and trust in God only. Then we have the next part of this process, and be the fourth point, is being driven low from human pride. What is a great... Brethren, you know what was in your way. It was yourself. Who's your worst enemy? Yourself. That must be dealt with. And then the last point is, what's the evidence? What evidence? Maybe you're a little skeptical. Was this Syrian really saved? at that, the evidence of conversion. And that's our last point here in this examination of Naaman. Let's go back to the beginning. What's the prerequisite to conversion, which is true in his case, and though all of these details are not present perhaps in the same level, in the same degree, in the same way, true conversion, I think we'll see these elements. First, there's going to be a felt sense of need. When I was in college, someone wrote on the wall in the men's room in a dorm of my friend, "Jesus is the answer." And some wag had come along and written under it, "What's the question?" What's a good question? What is the question if Jesus is the answer? And you see, unless people have a question, unless they feel a sense of need, they're never going to go looking for the answer. And so conversion begins with a felt sense of... Naaman had a lot going for him. Going back to the text, verse 1, he was captain of the army of the king of Aram. This was one of the great empires at that time in history. King of Aram, or Syria, great power, superpower of the day. And he was captain of their army, chief of staff of the military in Syria. Now that would have been a position we might even say equivalent to the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America. Wow, this is big stuff. And not only so, but because he had been the conquering general in their wars, he came home to great acclaim. Just think about after World War II when VE Day, and the soldiers came home from Europe. When there was victory over Japan, and all the soldiers are going home except for just a few remaining to clean up. And there were parades, and they were welcomed. Well, that was what awaited Naaman every time he came home. Victory. Now, he and the king of Aram didn't know it, but it wasn't really Naaman who gave him the victory, was it? The text tells us. The Lord, because by him the Lord has given victory to Syria. Gives us a glimpse behind the stage. Who is moving in all the events of history? God of history, sovereign God, has all things in his hands. Yes, even the victory of the enemy, God has a purpose for Israel's good. Victory by the Lord. And so he was a great man, well respected, a valiant warrior, a mighty man. He could perhaps shoot an arrow better, throw a spear better, and use a sword better than all the other men. And he didn't get his position important. He got it by his own arm. However, he had a burden. He had a big problem. And the verse 1 ends, but he was a leper. But he was a leper. And I've never, some studies, some books, or perhaps internet pictures of what leprosy does. And I know from books, not by personal experience, but it's a disease that attacks, first of all, the extremities and eats away the flesh. It attacks the nerves so that there's no feeling in the extremities. And so a leper might put his hand on something and have his flesh burned away. It is a degenerative, progressive disease. Little by little, it gets worse and worse. And in those days, of course, there was no healing, no cure. Whatever they would try, it would be useless. And there was only one out. Death. Slow, painful death. They would go to the leper colony, be banished when it got so evident that people would be turned off by the very sight of a leper. And he couldn't have maintained his position. He couldn't have been admitted into the presence of the king if this disease were in its progressive stage. There's only one ticket. Slow, painful, humiliating death. That's where he was going. That's his Spurgeon. He knew it. His wife knew it. The servant girl knew it. It's a household news. Their best kept secret. But he couldn't get it out of his heart, out of his mind. What's going to happen? Okay, I'm a great man. Everybody respects me. But what if they knew? He wanted to be healed. What would be the result? When he hears the good news, he didn't mock, he didn't turn his back, he listened. He was desperate for any good. Now, what was the name of the god of Syria is Rimmon. The temple of Rimmon. No doubt he had gone to their prophets. No doubt he had tried their cures, whatever they would have offered to him, because that was their faith. He was a Syrian. The god of Syria is Rimmon. What good did Rimmon do it? None. Even square centimeter of skin restored. Not 1 square millimeter restored. Only got worse and worse. Whatever doctors there were that day, and I doubt that there were many in their false religion than in medical skill, he was going to die. Now, you see, this is a picture. And the New Testament uses this language. This is a picture of every sinner. Now, maybe you don't have the disease evident in your hands, come out with your nose being disfigured, your face. But sin is disfiguring of the soul. Sin is something that destroys lives, that little by little kills. And, it's evident. A big issue in the drug problem, and our new president is taking arms against this sea of troubles and seeking to end them. It's in the news. But just locking up drug addicts and drug dealers is not going to end. How does it happen? Well, people are hopeless. They don't have a job. They don't have a hope of getting a job. So what do? You take drugs. Your wife leaves you. I knew a man who came to me actually for counseling. This was about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And what do? My friend said, well, let's just do shabu. Let's just do some drugs. And, you'll forget about your wife leaving you. He had enough sense to know better than that. But he wasn't converted, sad to say. But you see, sin destroys. It destroys lives. It destroys his family when his wife ran off with another man. It destroys homes. It destroys jobs. It destroys economically. Well, just a little more. I'll have to gamble a little more to win back what I lost. And there's devastation. Sin destroys. Little by little. It eats out the heart. Well, I'm going to try my best, and it's not good enough. Failure. And even the most successful. Here's a successful businessman. And he's made bundles of money. And in the workplace and in the marketplace, in business, he's highly respected. And he comes home and his son spits on his face. And it eats away at his soul. Because he's neglected his family to make his money. Sin destroys. It's a leprosy, a canker. And you know it, friends. Where is the cure? That brings us to our next point. When God brings people to a sense of their need, desperation, what do I do next? It starts out being fun, but it ends up being miserable. What do I do next? Well, God, a messenger. The message of hope he brings to souls in need. Now, who does he use as a messenger? Maybe you think, well, he's going to use a great preacher. He's going to use the prophet Elisha. Well, he does eventually. But where does it start? Whitfield or Charles Spurgeon or great preacher, whoever it might be, starts with a little girl. God, in His sovereign providence, causes one of the raiding bands of Syrians to go into a certain place in Israel, and goods and cattle, they would also take slaves. And there was in one of these homes a little girl, and they said, well, she could be a slave girl, she could be a servant girl. So they take this little girl, and you can imagine her maybe carried on the shoulders of one of these hulking Syrian soldiers, kicking and screaming. She ends up a slave girl. What does she do? Well, kind of like Joseph in prison. Or Joseph in Potiphar's house first, and then Joseph in prison. He just accepts God's providence and serves her mistress. But while she serves, she's not forgotten the God of Israel. And apparently her parents were among the 7,000 who had not bowed the knee to Baal in Israel. And they had taught her of Jehovah, and she had come to know of the prophets, the sons of the prophets. And she tells her mistress, maybe at the dinner table, and she's standing behind her mistress, to give her her cup and to set her plate before him. And her mistress says, more roast beef, please. And so she puts more roast beef there. Whatever it was, and she looks at her poor master, and she sees the signs of the leprosy on his hands as he's eating, and she says, he knows God. He can speak to God on behalf of Sir Naaman. He could help. And the mistress, tell. She says, well, sir, most with deep respect, we have a prophet. You see, our prophet in Israel, he has done great things. And maybe she tells him about the waters that were healed, and about the pot of stew, and about the axe head, and all these other things. And she tells him, well, he's got the man. The sons of the prophet saw him smite the water and come across while the waters were divided. This is the power of God. Elisha knows this God. He could help our master. And so, the master tells the king, well, we'll find out. He tells the king of Israel. But here, brethren, let's just stop and consider this message of hope. There's a God who cures. And here we are in this conference, not just talking about some event of some thousand Israel. We're talking about the God who lives and who abides and who changes not. Because the God that acted here in 2 Kings chapter 5 is the God who is living and active today. And He doesn't change. He did for this Naaman. There's a God in Israel. And He can save and He can heal. You see, there's a message of hope for those in need and despair. And that should be everybody, because ultimately sin will cause you misery. Dear young people, I know the devil whispers in your ears and says, this is great, this is fun, and your friends all say, yeah, try it, you'll like it. And sin looks so wonderful. And the Bible even admits in Hebrews chapter 11 that there are what the Bible calls the passing pleasures. I'll grant you that. But notice, passing. Temporary. I learned some of this, thankfully not by personal experience, but by observation. And young to find out. You can observe. When I was a freshman in college and very naive, but yet a new Christian, a young Christian, I knew there were certain things that Christians shouldn't do and certain places Christians shouldn't go. They didn't know that. He grew up with some Christian teaching in his home, so he had an idea that these things were wrong, but he didn't have Christ in his heart. So he went to a frat party, first year of college, you get away from home, nobody's watching you, and you think, oh, this is great, I'm free. I can try and do. So he went to this frat party, came back to the dorm room, drunk as a skunk, as we used to say. Vomited all over the floor. Said to me, Steve, my stomach feels like he'd gotten in a fight with an elephant and lost. That's what he said. Because I didn't want to smell beer vomit all night while I'm trying to sleep. Cleaned it up. Got him to bed. Got myself to bed. I learned a lesson. Sin makes you miserable. You don't have to try it. Man, just keep your eyes open. He was a sinner. Oh yeah, he was a great man. He was big stuff. Yeah, needy heart. You young people, sin. In the long run, oh yeah, passing pleasure. But long-term misery. Long-term misery. Learn the lesson. But there's a God in Israel. Brethren, let's imitate this little girl. You know, sometimes we're pretty shy, and sometimes we're pretty scared, and sometimes we keep our mouths shut and say, well, I'm just going to keep out of trouble, and I'm not going to talk about this, because I stick my nose in here, I might get my... It's going to be tough. If I talk about Jesus in the workplace, if I talk about the gospel in the school, then I'm going to be given grief. Here's a little girl in Syria. This is Rimmon country. She pipes up with her little girl voice. He can help. And don't we know the God of Israel? Don't we know the true and living God? Don't we know Jesus the Savior? If He saved you, He can save that woman next to you in the office. He can save that student in the desk. You know, I know a Savior. I know Jesus. He's living. He's able. He is willing to save. Just a little girl. Little girl. See, what can she do? She spoke up for her and his prophet. So, Naaman takes courage from this simple message. He acts. He goes to the king. He doesn't say, little girl, what does she know? He says, I've tried everything here. Pretty useless. Let's try. I hope you've come to see that you don't have the key in your pocket. To use Bunyan's phraseology. You can't get yourself out of this dungeon. Brian Boardman tells a story about one thing in a jail ministry. You're not supposed to ask the prisoners, what are you here for? You're not supposed to go prying into these details. But he happened to know that some of these prisoners were there for drug offenses. And they were repeat prisoners. This wasn't their first time in the clink. They were back again. His Bible study about total depravity. Now it's just a fancy Bible, or a fancy theological term. For Bible truth, it says, men are dead in their trespasses and sins. And dead people don't heal themselves. People don't raise themselves. Dead people don't get out of graves. It doesn't happen. And so he was describing this biblical truth of the desperate condition of sinners in their sins, and that they can't change themselves, and they can't decide to stop doing what they're doing. And this one of these prisoners objected and said, you're wrong there. Anytime we decide we can stop doing this and start living right. And this pastor, Brian Boardman, turned to the man and said, well, if you can stop any time, why don't you? Why are you here again? And the man just blustered and said, we could any time. Why don't you? You have an answer. You don't have an answer. And the answer is this, you can't. Because Jesus said, and it's true, and you know it's true, he who commits sin is a slave of sin. You know what you would like to do with your free will? Oh yeah, you do what you want, that's true. But the problem is, what you want to do is wrong. Free will is a slave to sin. You can't break your chains. You can't heal yourself. There's a God who heals, a God who saves, a God who changes. That's what the little girl is telling them. There's a God who can heal. And so, we come now in the next place, having seen already, the first point is Naaman's means of conversion is the messenger, the message of good news. The second is the process, the next point is the process of conversion. And men need to be driven from man-made solutions to trust God only. And that's the next point. And that's what happens to Naaman. Now let's just consider Naaman. Naaman gets the message. There's a prophet in Israel. There's a God in Israel. And so I ought to go to Israel, and I ought to go to this prophet, and he can cure me. There's a cure there. And so, first of all, Naaman goes to the king. Naaman doesn't go to the prophet. Why? Because there's this idea in those days that they didn't have separation of church and state, you see. They had the king is the head of the church. Sounds like, well, I don't get too political or whatever. I know I'm an American, but Church of England. Who's the head of the Church of England? It's dear Elizabeth. Yeah. Not the Archbishop of Canterbury. That was the problem way back in the Reformation in England. Old King Henry. He wanted control. Well, that was the idea of Naaman. We go to the king, and he writes a letter to the king of Israel. The king of Israel gives the order to the prophet, and the prophet waves his hands, and boom, presto, changeo, we're going to trust the king to do this for us. Syria is now whipping Israel in every battle, and so if Israel really wants to avoid having their clock cleaned, then they better listen to the king of Syria when he says, "Oh, we go to the king." That's trust in man. Second thing is, he trusts in money. And so we look in the text and it says that the king of Aram, the king of Syria says, "Go now, I will send a letter." And he departed. Now this is on the part of Naaman again. With him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 shekels of gold. Well, 10 sounds like a lesser number, but a talent is much, much bigger. And so it's roughly about 500 kilos of silver and about 100 kilos of gold. This isn't small change. You know, he was with him because he's got the wealth of a couple kingdoms in his pack bags on his camels or his horses or his chariots. And they got a whole bankload of money that they're traveling through now, not only Syrian territory, but entering Israeli territory with all this money. Why? Because if I've got enough gold, I can convince the prophet to do what I want him to do. I mean, he's going to say, "Oh, you're going to donate that much to our church? Oh, yes, sir. Well, we will baptize your unconverted child. We will... Anything you want, sir." People have that idea today. You know, we buy the church a new organ. We put up a new building for the church. We give them stained glass windows. And now the church is in our debt. They will do what we want. It's not so far as you think. People still have the idea. And the rich men, there was a problem in New Testament days. The rich guy comes in the church. "Oh, sit here, sir. Oh, we have this seat just for you." Poor guy comes in there. Over there. Money is the answer to all things. Money, God's got to heal me. What else? He trusts furthermore in the physical action of the prophet. Look at it again in the text. So he goes and he pulls up there at the door of Elisha's house, and you come out and look at how he puts it. "Behold," verse 11, "I said to myself," I like that translation, "He will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of his God and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper." What's he trusting in? He's going to do the hocus pocus and wave his hands and do the ritual thing. A little holy water maybe. Bingo, I'm in, I'm good. I'm going to see that leprosy shrink. I'm going to see my flesh restored. And whatever hocus pocus, whatever mumbo jumbo, whatever, maybe he'll have some kind of religious claptrap sort of accoutrements that he's going to bring out and use, and maybe sprinkle a little powder here, or have a poof kind of magic flash, and wow, that's going to be impressive. These are his confidence, aren't they? Power of the king, power of money, power of ritual. What do we see in so many churches these days? Same old, same old. Powerful people, they got into it. Money, ritual, that's going to be effective. So much of religion bows to those three items. He had to be disabused of each of these three things. I want to trust in the king. So, king of... We're going to send the order, and because our army is so strong and so big, we're the superpower. Israel's like, third rate. They're an undeveloped country. They're going to have to listen to us, or they're going to get creamed. They're going to get smothered. They're going to get smacked. And so I'll write a letter to the king of Israel, and he will have to do what we say. So the letter comes to the king of Israel, and it's hand delivered. Naaman marches in, and you can imagine he's got his chariots, and he's got his horsemen, and he's got a contingent of the special forces with him. And they march in, and they're standing outside the palace there in Samaria, and these are knocking. And he says, here's the letter from the king of Syria. Oh no, what's it this time? Heal my general. General, sure. Yeah, what else? Bring rabbits out of a hat. Anytime. No problem. What is he trying to do? He's just looking for an excuse. He says, you didn't heal my general, we'll wipe you off the face of the earth. We're going to drop the big one on you, baby. It's all over for us. Oh no, he's biting his nail, pulling out his hair, tearing his clothes. Where's his trust in the king? The king would just give the order. He's tearing his clothes. He's tearing on his axe. He's in panic mode. The king can't help me. The king's not doing anything. He's worthless. That will down the tubes. How about the money? So, the prophet Elisha hears of all this fault. They were all back in the capital, and he sends his messenger, and the messenger says, why did you tear your clothes? Send it to me. And he'll know, of course, God knows what went on in Naaman's house. God knows what the little girl said. And the Lord informs Elisha. Elisha sends the messenger to the king. So the king probably mopped his brow. I'm off of this one. At least if he fails, it's Elisha's problem, not my problem. Get out here, go to Elisha, go there. He was not a believer, this king. Wicked king. So, now he gets back in his chariot, and he's got his motorcycle guards on either side. Not motorcycle, he's got his horsemen on either side, with the sirens going, and they pull up outside Elisha's house. Everybody in the neighborhood is out looking over their gate. What's going on there in Elisha's house? Stands there. Got all his money in his bag. Perhaps his servants are bringing it out and say, we have this money and the changes of clothes. What's the big deal in store like we have in Manila? We call it ukay, and you can buy used clothing for 10 pesos, What's the big deal about changes of clothes? They didn't have clothes like we have. They didn't have factories. They didn't have machines that made clothes. It had to be all hand-woven, hand-stitched, everything hand. Have one change of clothes. This is a big deal he's offering. And Elisha snitched at it. Who wants your money? What's all that stuff you got here? What are those trinkets? Ritual. Surely I thought he will come out and stand and call on the name of his God and wave his hands over the place and do his hocus pocus. And Elisha doesn't even out of the house. Where's the ritual? Where's the priest? Where's all the priestcraft? God is doing, shooting down his false hopes, his man-made solutions, one after the other. King can't do it. Money can't do it. Rituals, we don't have the ritual. You put your money on the wrong horse. You put your eggs in the wrong basket. You lost those folks. That's not going to save you. Now, we just apply this to ourselves in our day. People who get themselves in trouble, whether it's with drugs or whether it's with financial problems or whether it's relationship problems. And by the way, I don't mean to pains and agonies. My nephew committed suicide because his girlfriend broke up with him in college. That's heartbreaking. I'm not minimizing. But my nephew took the wrong solution. He went the wrong way. He didn't run to the Savior. This is a heartbreak. Because he should have known better. Trust in men. He thought his girlfriend would make his life. And she's gone. Dear young people, dear old people, whoever you are, looking to man for the answer to your heart's deepest need. It's our great blessing from God. I treasure the relationships we have in our families. I treasure relationships with gospel minister friends of mine over the miles and over the years. My hope is not in people, but in heart, and heal your leprous soul. Fail. Men are a failure. Trusting in your money. And it's such a tragedy to see people who put all their hope in their bank accounts and their money. Oh, sure, you can buy the best doctor and pay for the best lawyer. But at the end of the day, what good is it? The doctor comes and he says we've done all we can and that's it. We've given already 20 bags of blood as transfusion and urine. And money can't pay for it. It doesn't do any good. Money is not the solution. Ritual. And so many people look for religion. And I even had a college friend who said, I'm kind of, for what that's worth, but he was being attracted to Romanism because he says, it's just got such pomp and circumstance, it seems so attractive with all of the rituals. It's useless, it's empty. That's what Naaman the place. Dear friend, ritual will not save your soul. We have people coming to our church out of Roman Catholicism because they're empty and they've seen it goes nowhere. That was Martin Luther's problem. Mentioned earlier this morning, small things. He was looking and searching, and he had gone into the depths of all that Roman Catholicism offered. He was a monk. Didn't answer his soul's needs. Only the blood shed on Calvary can wash away that deep, dark stain of your sin. Only the righteousness of Jesus will be acceptable in the great day when the judge says, I demand perfection. And your best doesn't matter. Only Jesus. Only Jesus. Not ritual. And so you need to be driven, like Naaman was, from any hope in man-made solutions to seeing the only hope is in God Himself, in Christ alone. And so will be our hope, our life, our stay. Well, that leads us to the next point. here in the process of conversion, the fourth point, second about the process, is we need to be driven low from human pride. And the problem in general, you see, is that this is not just so blatantly see a Naaman. You know, here he is, Naaman rolls in his chariot, this whole motorcade or chariotcade, up to the door of Elisha, and whether he still waits in his chariot, it just says they stood. That could just mean stood still, get down from his chariot. Maybe he felt he was too important. The prophet better come to me because I'm who I am. I'm the big shot here. And why is he like that? Remember, who is he? He's the biggest shot in Syria, second only to the king. He's respected in the street. The crowds part. Not the sea parts, but the crowds of humanity part. Here comes Naaman. Ooh, better. Sir, yes, sir. What will be done for the man that the king desires to honor? That was Naaman in Syria. He come out because he knows who I am. Pride. He was infected with it. He had all he wanted. He had so much money, and he didn't know what to do. He's like Bill Gates. Bill Gates probably wondered, where will I spend my next billion? He was so proud. Only leprosy brought him low. He was a leper. Couldn't get around that. But even with his leprosy, it didn't cure him of pride, did it? Isn't that true of all of us, though? Calvin, in his Institutes, in the section on the Christian life, has a statement which is for more than 30 years. He says, the poor bows to the rich, the servant bows to his master, the uneducated bow to the educated, the powerless bow to the powerful. But he says, every one of us thinks he is better than the rest in his breast. What Calvin is saying is that everybody really thinks he's better than everybody else. Now I know one affliction of our society is insecurity complex, People think, I can't do anything, I'm no good. But here's my question. Maybe you have this complex, whatever you want to call it, you think you're no good. But let me ask you this question. When you're thinking you're no good, who are you thinking about? You think about yourself. Think about yourself. What does that tell you? Even though you think maybe you're no good, be good. I should really be respected. I should really be up there. Poor me, I'm not up there. Still thinking of yourself and putting yourself first. Every man carries around the kingdom in his breast. It's you. Keeps people from Christ. Well, they say intellectual doubts, I can't believe that. I can't believe that, God came down, was born as a baby, and I can't believe that gospel stuff. I can't believe, that Jonah was swallowed by a fish, and, this is pride. You think you know better. How about doubts that arise from moral problems? One of my pastor friends in the U.S. he was jogging and he got talking to somebody and an intellectual problem with the gospel. And my friend said to him, "What's her name? What's her name?" In other words, your problem is intellectual, it's moral. You got a girlfriend, right? And your relationship isn't right here, that you're carrying on something that's not right in God's eyes. And what about a moral problem? That's pride too. I'm not gonna give up my sin. I have this, I love it, and nobody's gonna tell me what to do with it. Pride. Dear friends, what's your pride costing you? Eternal life. Is it worth it? Look in the mirror, man. Who are you really? Not a pretty picture. I know it's painful. It is painful to see yourself for what you really are. Because it's not a pretty picture. Punishments, what you've done to hurt other people, people that love you, care for your own mother, your own father, People who've been your best friends and you've hurt them and stabbed them in the back. The things you've done. Even done to yourself. You thought it was going to be good. You thought it was going to be the best ever. You won't admit it. Why? Man. Oh, washing that Jordan River? That's filthy. I mean, if I took my clothes and washed them in the Jordan River, they'd come out dirtier than when I went in with them. Polluted. It's filthy. Why? How does God cure him? Well, God cures him in a couple ways. First of all, again, it's Elisha's snub. He pulls up in his chariot, and Elisha says, okay, you think you're big stuff. I'll send a message. So the messenger goes out, sir, master says, go wash in... Wait a minute, who are you? I'm a servant, I'm just a messenger that Elisha sent. Where's the prophet? Well, he's kind of busy today. He's trimming his nails, and he doesn't want to come out because he's so busy with that. I just made that up, of course, but it would seem like, wait a minute, I'm the most important thing on his schedule today. No, maybe he was praying. Maybe he was meditating on the books of Moses. He wasn't going to interrupt his communion with God. He wasn't going to interrupt. Naaman, you are not the big stuff you think you are. You're just another sinner in this poor, miserable world, after all. Come down off your high horse. You're not great. So Elisha snubs him. And the remedy is this. And the way he put it, behold, I thought. Behold, I said to myself, he's going to come out and do all this. And Spurgeon has a whole sermon on this one phrase, behold, I thought. And that's typical Spurgeon, by the way. And I would encourage you, get that last copy. I think somebody got it. Too bad. But Amazon.au, or if there is an Amazon in Australia, or its equivalent, or whatever bookshop you know, or even the 2-volume autobiography, which is also, if you've got the time to read two volumes instead of one little paperback, it's even better. And he'll tell you of Spurgeon's method. Volumes, is it 52, I think, of Spurgeon's sermons. And you'll see how he deals with text. Well, he takes this one phrase, behold, I thought. And Spurgeon expands it to show how many different things people thought about what would save them. And after every one, he hits the flush button to work. That's what people do. Behold, I thought he's going to do this and that'll save me. Behold, I thought if I try this. Behold, I thought if I do this ritual. Behold, I thought. It's all worthless. It's not what you think. It's what God says. You have to learn that. God says, no, go wash 7 times in the river. But thankfully, he had some wise servants. I always wish I could meet these guys, and maybe because of what happened to them, and they too became believers and will meet him in glory. But this wise, gracious, difficult Naaman, but he does come to him very graciously, very respectfully, and says, my father. Very respectful. My father, had the prophet told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says, wash and be clean? And so, he was clean. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child. And he was clean. Can you imagine, okay, 7 times. And forgive me if I take a few minutes over. Is that all right, boss? All right. So he goes and he dips 1 time. And I imagine, he comes out of the muddy water because he couldn't see his flesh under the muddy water, obscure. So he comes out, he looks. See? I do it again? Well, I said 7. Okay, again. So 2nd time he goes in, comes out. No change. This isn't working. Goes in again, comes out. 3 times. Well, the servant said, and the process is repeated. And finally, the 6th time, he says, man, I don't know about this. And he said, all right, 1 more. I'll just give it 1 more. He comes out. And whether it was like instantaneous or whether he saw the process in his flesh growing back and healing, and then the final product is, as I said earlier, the smooth skin, not a wrinkle, not a blemish, and as we say in America, soft as the skin on the baby's behind. And that was it. That was it. And he's overwhelmed. What does he do? What's the evidence? And here's our last point. What's the conversion? Well, verse 15, there's a declaration of his faith and fidelity. Now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Verse 17, he says, I will not, your servant will offer no more burnt offerings to any other gods or sacrifice, but to Jehovah. That's a confession of faith and trust. It is a heart commitment. I have no other God. It's like the Shema, the Hebrew confession of faith back in Deuteronomy chapter 6. That, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God. This is what he's saying. The only one. The God of Israel. Jehovah. He's now my God. That's a confession. He's willing to stand up. He's not going to bring any more animals to the house of Rimmon. He's not going to sacrifice on the altars of their god or gods anymore. Their gods didn't help him at all. They didn't do a bit for him. He's finished with all those other gods. There's only one, and that's Jehovah. And then he has a strange request. We'll come back. I said we'd come back as we do. There's 2 mule loads of earth. I just say, what in the world is he going to do with dirt? Remember, back in the Old Testament, to make altars to Jehovah out of cut stone, out of earth. So he is going to take this dirt back home, make a mound, and that's where he's going to offer sacrifice to Jehovah. Now, of course, you couldn't expect him to go to Jerusalem to offer sacrifice in Solomon's temple. That's not going to happen. And by the way, he's healed in Israel, the northern kingdom, not in the southern kingdom of Judah. So, next best thing is the high places like they had even in Israel and in Judah, that there were sacrifices offered to Jehovah in different locations, and that's what he says, I'm going to do. I'm going to make my own altar for Jehovah out of these mounds, out of these 2 donkey loads of dirt. Now, you can just imagine. He comes back, and usually, King Naaman, the great general, comes back in victory procession into the city, into there would be Damascus in Syria, and the trumpets flare, and he's announced, well, what booty did you bring back from Israel this time, Naaman? What did you capture this time? Did you bring back some treasure? I says, I've got 10 talents of silver. Oh, no, minus 2. Well, we're not going to get to Gehazi, unfortunately. But what you went with? Well, I brought 2 mule loads of dirt. Huh? Dirt? What's that worth? Dirt. Maybe they went away saying, he went away with leprosy. Came back crazy. He got sick in the head. He was dirt. You see, Naaman didn't care about that. He had much more treasure than he left with. What? Not gold or silver. The true and living God. He comes to try. He was going to offer sacrifice to him. And then there's one request, and we need to take note of this. In this matter, verse 18, may the Lord pardon your servant when my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon. When I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon your servant in this matter. What's he saying? Is he compromising? Is he saying, well, I'm just going to go along with Rimmonite when I'm really a Jehovahite? Is that what he's saying? No. He's saying, look, it's part of my job as chief of staff. When the king goes into the temple, I've got to escort him. I'm the official escort of the king. And so the king, whether the king was old at this point, I don't know. He didn't last too much longer, I don't think. But for me. So the king bows. It's got a domino effect. I got to bow too. But I'm not doing it in giving respect to Rimmon. I don't care about it. I don't worship Rimmon. I don't believe Rimmon. I'm just doing it as my official duty to the king. But I have no confidence in Rimmon. May the possible Elisha, will the Lord forgive me when I do my official duty and I have no heart of worship to Rimmon at all? What's the answer? Go in peace. You know what that means? God understands and forgives. It's not God knows that you are now a worshiper of the true and living God alone. You put your faith and trust in Him. And so, how about you? You look at this. Is there fruit of conversion? Do we see evidence? There is this confession of his lips. There is this determination to worship only the true and living God, even to the point of building his own altar in his own backyard, which is going to be known, it's going to be talked about, it's going to be broadcast. People will know there in Syria that he doesn't go and bring animal sacrifices anymore along with the king, but that's only because he's asked to. He's standing up as a Syrian for the God of Israel. How about you? You stand up for the true and living God. He was ashamed of me in this wicked and perverse generation. I will be ashamed of him before my Father. Are you ashamed of your Savior? You manifest evidence of true conversion. I'm not saying you've ever, been a little shy. That's not the question. The question is evidence that you not only with your heart believe, but with your mouth you confess Jesus is your Lord. That's what he's doing. How about, is there the opposite evidence of compromising? Now, will you take Naaman's request as an excuse? Naaman in that compromise. I'm going to compromise. I can go along with the guys to the, get drunk on Friday night. I can go along to the bold movies. I can do it all. I can go to the parties, and hey, because anyway, God forgave Naaman. That's your line? What a man sows, that he will reap. You sow to the flesh, you reap corruption. Naaman wasn't looking for a way out. Naaman wasn't compromising. He was just asking for understanding as he did his official duty with in his own heart. Don't compromise. Don't compromise. Who are you? You're a Christian. As the hymn says, stand up for Jesus. Well, now, as we wrap it all up, what does this have to say to us? It says, from Christ. Get rid of your pride, throw it away, look at yourself in the mirror of God's Word. Who are you? Really? I'm just a poor sinner. Nothing at all. Come to see that, you're a poor sinner. Needy sinner. Helpless sinner. That's who you are. But the second line of that little ditty is, but Jesus Christ is my all in all. I'm just a poor sinner and nothing at all. But Jesus Christ is my all in all. When you come to that, you see, as Naaman did, that if there's going to be any healing, if there's going to be any part, it's going to only come from God, not from myself. Anything I do, anything I feel, it's all from Christ. Trust in Him only. Not in any man-made solution, not in yourself, not anybody else. Christ alone. And show you are His. Stand up for Jesus. Don't be ashamed. Worship Him. That's what Naaman did. He got back to Syria. He didn't say out of sight, out of mind. He said, I'm here, yes. I'm in Syria, yes. But I'm going to worship the God of Israel the rest of my life, all my days. And that's what he did. How about you? Is there evidence? If you were taken to a court of law with the charge that you're... Would there be evidence to prove the charge? Would there be evidence? Brethren, I hope there would be. Hypocrites there won't be. Stand up for Jesus. Be real. Be real. Like man. For this life, though it is one that was lived some thousands of years ago, yet we learn today. These things were written for our instruction. We see a man who was a pagan, an idol worshiper, a proud truster in himself and in all of his methods, and you brought him low. We plead with you, oh God, bring low, trusting in themselves and their own methods and their own abilities. Bring them low and show them that only in Christ is there hope for sinners. Only in Him is there pardon and cleansing. Only in Him will there be a new life, a new heart. Only in Him questions be found. We ask this in His precious name.